and by popular demand, Matt, Fight Night picks, and we're getting ready for UFC on ESPN Plus 31 coming at us from the ViStar Veterans Memorial Arena in Jacksonville, Florida. And this is going to be the second of 3 cards in 8 days. And our first fight on that card, Matt, is a heavyweight banger between a UFC debutant and a guy coming back to the promotion. We've got Ike Villanueva taking on the Vanilla Gorilla, Chase Sherman. Matt, really interesting fight because Ike Villanueva is a guy that a lot of people might recognize from his time in the regional scene in Texas. This is a guy that's Fury FC light heavyweight champion. I know not that long ago, back in March, Powell, the show, Nolan King wrote about him from MMA Junkie and said he was one of those 10 guys that we should watch for coming out of the regional scene to fight with the UFC, maybe getting a shot on Dana White's Contender Series. 16-9 total record. I mean, you look at his record, and he's fought some UFC names. Yes. He's fought the Justin Ledets, the Trevin Giles, and maybe some of those fights haven't gone his way. But his last 4 fights have been first-round finishes, and his last 2 fights are against UFC caliber opponents in Roger Narvaez as well as Rashad Coulter, able to finish him as well. So that's one side of the coin. The other side, we have Vanilla Gorilla, Chase Sherman. A lot of people recognize him. He was kind of the yin to Elias Theodorou's yang over on Twitter, the gift king, whichever one was at the top of the food chain. But Chase Sherman for a long time resonated with a lot of UFC fans. I mean, I know he only went 2-5 with the promotion, but out of some of those losses, I'm going to read them all. Justin Ledet, Walt Harris, Shamil Durkimov, Justin Willis, and then his last fight was against Augusto Sakai. Still in the UFC and ranked, Walt Harris, Abdurkimov, and Sakai. And before Justin Willis left due to uncertain terms, he was ranked quite highly in the division. So Chase Sherman's fought tough opponents. Ike Villanueva's coming in on a nice streak. He's fought some good opponents lately, really able to put together a lot of good performances. What do you expect in this one? I think it's a really fan-friendly fight.
Exactly. I think the first 5 minutes of this fight, and I kind of say this about a lot of heavyweight fights, but it is the truth. This is going to be an absolute slobber knocker for probably the first 5 minutes. If no one falls down after that, I really do think it's going to come down to cardio, just because stylistically, both guys do match up quite well with each other. And I would have to favor Ike Villanueva due to the fact that, A, he's a little bit smaller, and I think that will play a big part in this fight. I just feel like his overall athleticism, if he can get through that first round, we know Chase Sherman throws those really good calf kicks, something not a lot of heavyweights do, and I know we got to go way back to the Rashad Coulter fight, but that really showed that Chase Sherman, he loses to the guys he's supposed to lose to, because like you mentioned, all those guys are pretty much ranked that he lost to, but he beats the guys he's supposed to beat, and there's such a big discrepancy in his level of competition, because he's either fighting guys who are no longer in the UFC right now, or guys who are currently in the top 15, so it's really hard to kind of measure how good Chase Sherman is going to be coming back.
And with Chase Sherman, 2 wins, I should mention, Rashad Coulter was one of those wins. That was a crazy fight, and then he beat Damian Grabowski as well. And then, apart from that, we haven't seen Chase Sherman in an MMA cage since about this time last year. He's been competing with BKFC as well. Now, I know he had a BKFC or a bare knuckle fight kind of sandwiched between MMA fights. Of those fights, a draw to Sam Shoemaker, kind of like the original hillbilly with the big beard. He was like the inaugural champ type of guy. And then he had a fight against Arnold Adams. He won that one and lost to Joey Beltran, a name that a lot of people are going to recognize. Another X Factor with Ike Villanueva, coming from a really good gym. Head coach is Bob Perez. Don't know if we're going to see him here at these fights, but a guy that a lot of people recognize from the Derek Lewis connection. Daniel Pineda, Domingo Pilarte, and Mike the Truth Jackson, or some other fighters from that gym. In terms of odds on this fight, it's really tough to find odds. We typically go off of best fight odds, but we don't really have much for some of these fights. So going with fightodds.io, Chase Sherman coming in as a plus 120 underdog on most sites. Ike Villanueva at a minus 150 over on Tapology out of a select few, 151 votes. 79% of fans going with Chase Sherman and 85% predicting a knockout. What do you make of that?
So I think Ike Villanueva is going to win this fight just due to the fact that Chase Sherman doesn't really have the skills to take advantage of the things that Ike Villanueva doesn't do all that well. Ike Villanueva got submitted by Trevin Giles, and I know Trevin Giles is a very talented fighter, and he is decent on the ground, but he's a 185er and one of the smaller ones at that. But Chase Sherman, I don't know if he's ever shot for a takedown. He's going to play that game with Ike Villanueva, and I just feel like the power of Villanueva is going to eventually seep through because, let's be honest, Chase Sherman doesn't have the best striking defense in the world, and some of those shots are going to get through. So by that second, third round, if Villanueva has better cardio, I feel like he will start to tee off on Sherman.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to add this in. I mean, since Chase Sherman, we've gone quite a bit over the 2 minutes for just our first fight in the prelims, but since Chase Sherman's been away from the UFC, 3-0 over in Island fights, 3 first-round finishes to his credit as well. So you got guys that are finishing a lot of fights. I've had the chance to go back and watch some of those Island fights. And I know, level of competition, we're talking about it for both these fighters. Outside of the UFC, you're not going to be taking on typically that UFC talent. I know Villanueva in his last 2 has. Chase Sherman, maybe not so much in island fights, but he really does look improved in the stand-up. And I mean, that's one of those things that you have to credit. If you're going to spend full bore, full time focusing on bare knuckle and just stand up and mixed martial arts, I think this is probably the fight for him. But ultimately, this is a really good fight for the fans. I'm predicting Sherman wins. I could see it going a little bit longer than the first round, but I'm going to go with Sherman.
I'm going to go with Villanueva. I think it's going to be an absolute brawl for as long as it lasts.
This should be a great fight, a great first fight for a UFC on ESPN Plus 31 card. We're already there, so make sure you check out the rest of the videos in the playlist for this card. You can also find picks for UFC 249 and our UFC on ESPN Plus 32 card. Here with Fight Night Picks, we always say, Matt, let's get into it.